A member over on Patreon sent me a message recently asking if I could make a video on reflections, or more specifically how to paint reflections in slowly running water, so kind of like a small river or a stream. So I thought I'd do a quick painting anyway, just to see if I can outline what they were talking about. I'm just going to do a very basic painting, but obviously I need to paint something up above if I'm going to demonstrate the reflection. So I'll paint like a little woodland sort of stream, some trees, and then reflect that straight down. Okay, I did a very simple drawing, so I've just wet the paper all over very lightly with a mist bottle, and I'm thinking I'll try and make it look a little bit foggy, a little bit misty, quite atmospheric. So a very simple sky using some of the greys from the palette, and I'll just touch some cobalt blue into that. So bring that across. That's basically it for the sky. And I think I'll use some of that little bit of green that's left there from another painting, bit of Viridian and some blue, I think. Touch that with a little bit more Viridian, a little bit more blue, and make it a slightly different colour to the sky. Oh, that's a little bit dark, so a bit of clean water, and just soften that off all the way and fill in that whole water area with that. Have it a little bit darker down towards the foreground, and soften off all the edges. Now I've got quite a bead formed in the sky there, so I'll mop that up, bring that all the way down. And now I'll add some distance. So I've got some blue and a little touch of light red to grey it off a touch. So very basic, little bit of distance there. Just put that straight in. I'm using a large sable brush for this. I think it's about size 14 or 16, so quite a big brush. And pick up a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of raw sienna as well. And bring in a little bit of land. Again, very simply stated, a lot of this is going to be covered up with the trees. And so now I'll start working on the land that's a little bit closer. And I can bring that in, and I can touch the edge of where I've put that little wash in for the water, and hopefully you can see there it's starting to run down where I touched that wash, and that will kind of form its own reflection. So quite a bit of the work is done for me there. Can introduce a little bit of grey into that foreground. I'll cover that over in a little while. I'm just concentrating on getting all of the paper covered at the moment. So again, bring this little wash in for that little bit of land there, and touched it into that water wash, and you can see it's all starting to run down. And then once I get a hard edge in there, it really should look like a reflection. So I can drag some slightly darker paint across those banks as well, just to give it a little bit of separation. Can touch some of that into the distance as well, tiny little bit. Now I think a lot of the time people painting reflections might be tempted to overcomplicate it a bit and think you have to mirror exactly what you see above. So if you're painting a tree, it's quite tempting, I suppose, to try and mirror exactly what the tree looks like above. But if you've got water and it's moving and it's flowing, it would distort the shapes across the water anyway, so I don't have to worry about it too much. Right, okay, I've dried that first wash, so I'll move on and start adding some trees. Before I do, I'll give a quick mist all over. A light mist. I want the paint to soften still. Like I said at the start, I want it to have a slightly atmospheric, misty look. So I'll go into that grey there that's in the palette, and I'll just use some of that, I think, and bring up some very simple tree shapes. I've switched to the rigger brush now, and it's a size 4 sable rigger. And now these trees are a tiny little bit further away, so I can have them like a blue-grey type colour, so they recede back, and I'll build up layers, bringing trees a little bit closer. But I'll put the first set of reflections in. I'll reflect these anyway. I can cover over these marks with trees that are closer, it doesn't matter. But if I get these in now, they're there. And then so anything I put over the top, little bits of this will shine through. So I'm looking at the shapes above, not too closely, but very quickly dragging down and very loosely mirroring what I see above. And now soften and just the little edges there. I don't want the edges of the reflections to be as hard as the edges of the trees that they're reflecting, if that makes sense. And I'll put another tree in over on the right, a few more marks over there. Same blue-grey. Working very quickly. A lot of this will be covered up with darker, larger trees. But same again, very loosely drag down a few marks to suggest the reflections of those. And now varying the colour slightly with more blue and some more burnt sienna. Give another quick mist. I don't want anything to dry out too quickly. So very light mist with the bottle. And now let's get a slightly darker tree in there. So I'll bring up a trunk and then very quickly flick the rigger around to get little bits of dry brush. And that kind of all adds to the atmospheric effect and looks like light shining and tiny little bits of reflected light. And now just soften across the bottom of all those trees as well. Drag some of the paint around from left to right, and it helps tie it into the land. Okay, it's got some more burnt sienna. I can bring some of that in, a little bit of variation in the colour. And again, very quickly flicking the rigger around. I want to build up quite a few marks in these trees and get them looking quite busy, just to demonstrate really that you don't have to mirror everything you see above to make a convincing reflection. And another quick mist again with the bottle, and I can start reflecting some of these now, so it's a slightly darker colour than the reflections I put in to start with. But it's still slightly lighter in value than the value on the trees. And that's something to bear in mind with reflections as well, is that they'll appear, if you're reflecting a dark tone or a dark value, the reflection will appear slightly lighter. If you're reflecting something light in value, like a white, something like that, the reflection will always appear ever so slightly darker. So that's just something to bear in mind. But hopefully you can see there where I've put those reflections in, that it's quite a busy tree above, and the reflections, I've not mirrored it exactly at all, but it still works. So I've switched to a slightly different brush now. I've got a size 4 sable, and I'll put in a slightly larger tree as well. Because we're coming a little bit closer, so these are going to be a tiny little bit darker as well, but still bringing up the from the base and then getting a little bit of dry brush in there. All those little broken edges in trees, I think, really help to give the illusion that there's more going on than you've painted. So again, working very quickly. Put a few more marks over this side as well. So there's like 1,001 branches and little bits going on. I've got a little drip there, just mop that up before it dries. Okay, wet again across the water area, and I'll put in some of these reflections. So same sort of blue-grey colour, lighter in value than the trees that it's reflecting. And again, loads of little marks there. Having a quick glimpse at what's above and then very loosely dragging straight down. Another quick mist with the bottle just to keep everything soft. You don't have to do all this misting if you're painting your own picture. It's only because I want the atmospheric look that I'm doing that. Now another thing, whilst they're still wet down there, those reflections, I can drag some clean water across. That gives the impression that there's a few ripples down in the water. It's quite a nice little thing to do. Don't want to do too much. But just a little bit of clean water dragged across, and it softens the edges and gives the instant look that there's some ripples in the water. And so we want to get just the feeling that it's quite slow running water, so I think that helps with that illusion. Okay, let's put a really quite a big tree in now. Let's go a little bit chunkier on this trunk there as well. And again, soften all the edges at the bottom there and just tie the trunks down into the land. Now I picked up some more blue, added it to that grey, and I'll put in the reflection of this large trunk. And so it's as easy as that really. Just mirror the shape that you see above very loosely, very quickly. And let's bring in some more little branches and twigs. So everything's starting to take shape now, and I think the water looks wet, which is the main goal, I suppose, of painting water. Let's bring in a few more little tiny branches here and there as well. And I think I'll add another tree, just coming in at an angle. Now the paper's still a little bit wet there, but that's fine. Don't mind if it softens and runs a tiny little bit. Again, it all adds to the atmospheric look. Let's make that a double trunk type tree. And again, soften the bottom of the tree straight away, and then that ties it instantly down into the land. Let's darken this tree on the left there as well, actually. And one or two more branches. Okay, let's put those reflections in as well now. So got some blue again, mix that in with the grey. Now that's going on quite hard edged, so get a bit more water in the brush. And just the tiniest little bit of reflection from that tree on the left hand side. Okay, let's grab some more ultramarine, more burnt sienna. Mix that up quite dark now. I'll just introduce a few dark marks across the banks. And that really starts to get the separation now between the land and the water area. Little broken line. And bring some of that in on the right hand side as well. And now grab some clean water in the brush and soften some of those marks as well. I don't want too many real dark, hard edges. So a little bit of clean water in the brush always fixes that. And I can flick a few marks up, maybe some little bits of grass and reeds, and reflect them at the same time. And so that just acts to break up the shape as well as adding some tiny little reflections. And I think I need to darken that orangey burnt sienna colour in the land. So I've got some more burnt sienna, more raw sienna. I can scrub some of that in and around. Let's get some more dark across the base of this tree as well. And flick up a few little marks. And back into that burnt sienna and raw sienna mix and bring some of that across that far bank. And add a touch of viridian into it as well, I think, for this foreground area. No, I don't want any detail really in the foreground. It's just scrub it in. But keep varying the colour. It's important to always vary your colours, especially in little grassy areas like that. If you put it all in one colour, it will instantly become flat. Okay, I know these darks are starting to dry a little bit grey, so strengthen those ever so slightly. Touch some of that dark into that foreground as well and allow that to run. And a few more little vertical marks as well. And I think we're pretty much there. Okay, I've dried it off and had a little look. I think I'll add a couple of little more marks. Just bring that burnt sienna mix all the way across. It was looking a bit bare behind those trees, but I think that's pretty much it. I'll add a little bit more reflection down there on the right hand side, and that's the painting finished. So I hope that answered your question, how you can paint reflections in slowly running water, or slowly moving water I should say, so kind of like a woodland stream or a small river. So you can bring your reflections straight down in one go. You don't have to mirror exactly what you see above. Keep it quite loose, and it kind of automatically gives you that feeling of moving water anyway. So do keep it simple. Always vary the tone, so make your reflection slightly lighter if you're reflecting a dark shape, slightly darker if you're reflecting a light colour. Do give it a go. Let me know how you get on. If you've got any questions or any techniques or anything you'd like me to paint, then do follow me on Patreon, and if I can, I'll make that happen. But anyway, thanks for watching everyone, and have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.